Buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of German automakers.
Oh,
But with a twist.
okay.
We're looking at their presence in China, and let's just say things aren't exactly looking rosy over there.
Not rosy at all.
I mean, we're talking serious setbacks, like 50% profit drops,
Wow.
even factory closures.
Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic shift from what we've been used to seeing.
Exactly. For years, these German brands were like the kings of the Chinese car market.
Yeah, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, VW, Porsche, you name it, they were raking it in.
Yeah, they were basically printing money, using those profits to fuel their global expansion.
And it's not just a little dip we're seeing either.
No, not at all.
The numbers are pretty eye-popping. Porsche, for instance, saw a 19% drop in sales last quarter in China.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, and BMW took an even bigger hit, down a staggering 30%.
Wow.
Even the Volkswagen Group, with all its brands, is feeling the squeeze with a 15% decline.
So this isn't just one brand having a bad quarter, it's like a whole industry trend.
It really is. And the thing is, it's not because the Chinese market is shrinking overall.
Right, the Chinese car market is still growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not that people aren't buying cars, they're just not buying German cars the way they used to.
So where are those buyers going then? I mean, we all know Tesla is making waves, but there are all these other names popping up too.
Oh, absolutely.
BYD, XPeng, Neo, Leap Motor.
Yep. Those Chinese EV makers are really surging in popularity.
Okay, so we got to talk about those brands, but first,
Sure.
can we just acknowledge that this is like a major turning point for the German automaker?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. For years, German engineering was synonymous with quality and prestige.
Right, it was like the gold standard, especially in China.
And now they're facing this very real challenge from these Chinese brands that are not only offering competitive technology,
But often at a much lower price point.
exactly. It's a tough situation for the Germans to be in.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more. What's driving this shift in consumer preference? Why are Chinese buyers suddenly turning away from those big German names?
Well, I think there are a few key factors at play here. One is obviously the rise of electric vehicles.
Right, everyone's talking about EVs these days.
Yeah, and Chinese companies have really been at the forefront of that trend.
Mm-hmm.
They've invested heavily in battery technology and EV infrastructure.
And they're not just making EVs, they're making really good EVs.
Absolutely. They're producing cars that are technologically advanced, stylish, and affordable.
And that's putting a lot of pressure on those traditional German brands.
For sure. And it's not just about EVs either.
Oh, really?
No. Even the sales of traditional combustion engine models from German brands are declining.
Huh. So it's not just a simple shift towards electric, it's something bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It seems like there's a broader shift in consumer behavior happening in China.
like a shift away from those established foreign brands.
Yeah, and towards domestic brands that are seen as being just as good, if not better.
Okay, so let's dig into some specifics here. Our source, the Electric Viking, highlights a couple of head-to-head comparisons that really illustrate this point, like pitting the BYD Dolphin against the VW ID.3 or the XPeng G6 against the BMW X1.
Interesting matchups.
And in each case, the Chinese car comes out looking pretty impressive. Better tech, better performance, and often at a lower price.
Yeah, that's what's really shaking things up. These Chinese brands are not just offering a cheaper alternative anymore.
They're offering a better alternative.
Exactly, and that's a huge shift in the market.
There's a quote from a Chinese buyer in the source that really struck me. They said that domestic cars are actually better built than their German counterparts now.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It really is. I mean, think about it. For years, German engineering was the gold standard, and now...
Now they're being outsmarted and out-engineered in their own game.
Exactly, and that has to be a wake-up call for these German automakers.
Oh, absolutely. They can't just rest on their laurels anymore.
So what are they doing to counter this? Are they just throwing in the towel, or are they fighting back?
Well, they're definitely trying to adapt.
So
They're forming partnerships with Chinese tech companies and developing models specifically for the Chinese market.
But is that enough?
That's the big question. Are these moves truly innovative, or are they just delaying the inevitable?
It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, it does make you wonder if they're missing the bigger picture here.
The Electric Viking points out that German automakers have been a bit slow on the uptake.
Really?
Yeah, he even mentions this anecdote about never receiving emails from them.
Oh, wow.
Like they're just not really engaged.
That's not a good sign.
Could this be a sign of a deeper issue, like a certain arrogance or disconnect from the changing market?
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they've been so successful for so long that they haven't felt the need to adapt.
But the market is clearly telling them something different now.
Yeah, they need to wake up and smell the coffee.
Okay, so we've got German automakers facing a serious challenge in China. Their dominance is fading, and Chinese brands are on the rise.
It's a whole new ballgame.
But this story is bigger than just cars, isn't it? There's a global context here that we need to explore.
Oh, absolutely. What's happening in China could have ripple effects throughout the entire automotive industry.
And maybe even beyond.
Exactly. This could be a sign of things to come for other industries as well.
Okay, so buckle up again, everyone, because we're about to take this deep dive to the next level.
Let's do it.
We're going to explore the global implications of this shift in the Chinese car market and what it could mean for the future of the entire industry.
This is where things get really interesting.
So stay tuned. So is this like a domino effect waiting to happen? What's going on in China with German automakers? Could it be a sign of things to come for the whole global car industry?
Well, it's definitely a warning sign, like a canary in the coal mine.
Mm.
This shift in China could be a preview of a much bigger disruption in the automotive world. We're seeing a new order emerging one, where Chinese automakers are playing a leading role.
And it's not just about price anymore, right? They're outpacing the traditional players when it comes to tech and innovation, too.
Exactly. They're using their expertise in things like battery technology and software development to create cars that are genuinely better in a lot of ways.
Okay, give me an example. What are these Chinese cars doing that the Germans aren't?
We'll take the Xpeng G6, for example. It has this voice-activated AI assistant. You can control almost everything in the car with just your voice. Navigation sunroof, even the massage seats.
Wow, massage seats in a Chinese EV. That's pretty fancy.
It is, and it's that kind of innovation that's setting them apart.
Yeah.
Now compare that to some of the more clunky infotainment systems you find in German cars, and you start to see why buyers are switching.
It's like the whole game has changed, and the German automakers are still trying to play by the old rules.
Yeah, the electric Viking even uses the words arrogant and bureaucratic to describe their approach.
Ouch.
It's as if they were so used to being at the top that they just didn't see this coming.
And what's the prediction? What happens if they don't adapt?
Well, the source predicts that by 2030, those premium German brands, your BMWs, your Mercedes, they could become niche players in China. Almost like luxury boutiques.
Though not mass market anymore.
Right. Their days of mass market dominance could be over, which is a pretty big deal.
It's a huge deal. It's a wake-up call not just for German automakers, but for any company that thinks it's immune to disruption.
Exactly. This is a reminder that no industry is safe from change, and companies need to be willing to adapt or risk getting left behind. It's not enough to just rely on past success. Consumers are demanding more. They want cutting-edge technology, they want value, and they're willing to look beyond the established brands to get it.
And it's interesting, isn't it? This shift in the car industry seems to mirror a bigger trend. We're seeing globally the rise of China as an economic powerhouse. It's not just about cars, it's about a whole new landscape of innovation and influence.
It's a really important point. What's happening in the automotive world could be a sign of things to come in other industries.
So are we going to see Chinese companies challenging the status quo in tech, consumer goods, healthcare?
It's definitely a possibility. And that's what makes this deep dive into German automakers so relevant. It's not just a story about cars. It's a glimpse into a much bigger picture of global economic transformation.
So for our listeners, this means
being prepared for a future where Chinese brands are major players in all aspects of our lives. We need to be open to new possibilities, new brands, new ideas. The old assumptions about which brands are the best, which countries are leading the way, those assumptions are being challenged every day.
It's like we need to retrain our brains to think differently about quality and value. We can't just automatically assume that a product from a well-known Western brand is going to be the best option anymore.
Exactly. We need to be more discerning, more informed, more open-minded as consumers. And we have the power to shape the market with our choices. By supporting companies that are innovating and pushing boundaries, we can encourage a more dynamic and competitive landscape, which ultimately benefits everyone.
So this deep dive into German automakers has taken us on quite a journey. We've gone from the streets of Beijing to the boardrooms of Stuttgart, from the nuts and bolts of car manufacturing to the broader currents of global economics. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Changing consumer tastes, technology, leaps and bounds ahead, even these big geopolitical shifts. It's a lot to take in. But if we had to boil it all down, what are the key takeaways? What does this all mean for the average person listening right now?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the global car industry is in the middle of a huge transformation. This rise of Chinese automakers, it's not just a temporary thing, it's a total reshaping of the industry. And it's happening way faster than anyone expected.
And we've said it before, but it's bigger than just cars, right? It's about technology innovation and even how global power is shifting.
That's right. What we see happening with cars is just a small example of what's happening on a global scale. These Chinese companies are using their strengths, like their battery tech, software development, and how efficiently they manufacture, to make products that are just as good or even better than what we're used to from these big Western brands.
And they're doing it all at a price that's really appealing to people. It's easy to see why German automakers are having a hard time keeping up. It almost seems like they missed the memo about this whole innovation thing.
Well, the electric Viking definitely makes it seem like the German automakers have been slow to change, maybe even a little too comfortable after being so successful for so long. But the market has a way of humbling everyone, even the biggest players.
No one stays on top forever.
Hmm.
It's true. And what's interesting is that this trend might not stay in the car industry. Our source says what's happening in China could be a sign of things to come in other industries too.
It makes you think, if Chinese companies can disrupt the car industry, which is known for being complex and hard to break into, what's stopping them from doing the same thing in other areas?
That's a really good question. So this isn't just a story for car people. It's something we all need to be aware of.
Exactly. It's about change, about adapting, and about staying ahead of the curve. It's a reminder that the future is full of possibilities, some exciting and some maybe disruptive.
So we've covered the decline of German car companies in China, the rise of Chinese brands, the changing world of innovation, and how all of this impacts the global economy. It's been quite the deep dive.
It really has.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought, something to think about. What if this shift in the car industry is just one small part of a much bigger change? What if we're seeing a whole reordering of the global economy where new players are rising and old assumptions are being challenged? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep your eyes open to what's happening in the world and maybe consider taking a Chinese EV for a test drive. You might be surprised.